Welcome once again, as together we're talking over old times. I'm Don Trosper, the Public History Manager of the Olympia Tumwater Foundation. When the first American settlers arrived here in the fall of 1845, it was cold and rainy, and the Simmons Bush party were hungry, miserable, and nearly broke. It was fortunate that help came to them from the local natives and from the British at Fort Nisqually. Since they had little cash, they paid for the help with something that was just as good in those days: manual labor, or splitting cedar shingles and shakes. Dr. Tolmie was in charge at Fort Nisqually in 1845 when those first Tumwater settlers arrived. They had with them a letter of reference from Dr. McLaughlin at Fort Vancouver. Tolmie described the Americans in his own words, quote, "They got in this morning, all of them save the smallest, struggling along, carrying what they could to ease their exhausted oxen. Every trail raw foot, ragged and bleeding, blanket bartered for food as they could stomach from the Indians. Fish and fern roots don't stay long on your ribs. These men needed red meat. Those women needed wheat bread. Those children need milk," end quote. His heart went out to them, and he helped them as much as he could with provisions. And as I mentioned before, Tolmie allowed the Simmons party to pay for it all by manual labor with split cedar shingles. The men of the new town split many of them from the virgin forest surrounding the South Sound. It was back-breaking work using axes and draw knives, but the plentiful supply of straight-grained old-growth cedar provided them an income of provisions. The shingles sold for $3.50 per thousand, delivered to Nisqually Landing at the fort. After the first 2 winters and more settlers arrived, the Americans began working more for themselves. Not only did they build their own homes and farms, but also the first industries formed, utilizing the water power of the lower falls of the Deschutes River. The first thing Michael T. Simmons built was a crude grist mill so that flour could be ground from local grains for bread. Before that mill, the main diet of the settlers was dried peas and boiled wheat. Using machinery purchased from the Hudson's Bay Company, Simmons built a log and plank mill at the big falls below his cabin. For the burrs, he used large flat stones from the riverbed. It was a real treat, even though the flour was not very finely ground, since they didn't have bolting cloth or screen to sift the bran from the flour that first year. It was healthy and good, and gave them all a sense of getting established in the new land. Simmons began to see his vision for an industrial town take shape in a community he wanted to call Newmarket. That name didn't stick. Instead, it was given an Americanized name based on the Chinook trading jargon, Tumchuck, meaning loud or noisy water. The name Tumwater stuck, and is still our name today.